In the 1600s, one of the most powerful forces in the world was not a giant empire. It was not France. It was not Spain. It was not England. It was a small republic built on marshes, canals, ships, banks, maps, and courage. A country so small that on a map it looked almost impossible. But from this small land came one of the greatest commercial powers the world had ever seen. Its ships crossed oceans. Its merchants connected continents. Its investors helped invent the modern financial world. Its painters changed the way people saw ordinary life. And its greatest city, Amsterdam, became one of the beating hearts of the global economy. This was the Dutch Golden Age. And for a brief moment in history, the world seemed to flow through Amsterdam. To understand the Dutch Golden Age, we have to begin with something that sounds almost impossible. The Dutch were fighting for survival. For decades, the northern provinces of the Netherlands had been struggling against Spanish rule. Spain was one of the greatest powers on earth. It had armies, silver from the Americas, a global empire, and a king who saw rebellion as a threat that had to be crushed. But the Dutch had something different. They had ports, they had ships, they had merchants, they had skilled workers. They had religious refugees, printers, thinkers, and traders who came north when other places became unsafe. And most importantly, they had a culture that understood one thing very clearly. If you cannot dominate the world by land, you can still reach it by sea. The Dutch lived in a land that was partly made by human hands. Much of the country was low, wet, and vulnerable to floods. To survive, people had to cooperate. They built dikes, they drained land, they controlled water, they learned to organize, negotiate, calculate, and plan. This shaped the Dutch mind. Where other kingdoms built their power around royal courts and armies, the Dutch built power around cities, merchants, contracts, and ships. Their land was fragile, so their system had to be practical. Their country was small, so their imagination had to be global. By 1588, the Dutch Republic had emerged as a new political force. It was unusual for its time. It was not ruled by a single absolute king. It was a republic of provinces, cities, merchant elites, and political factions. It was messy, it was complicated, but it was also flexible. And in the world of trade, flexibility could become power. At the beginning, the Dutch were not supposed to win. Spain and Portugal had already divided much of the oceanic world between them. Their ships had sailed to the Americas, Africa, India, and East Asia. Their empires seemed permanent. But history often changes when a new player finds a weakness in the old system. The Dutch saw that wealth did not only come from owning land, it came from moving goods. Grain from the Baltic, timber from Northern Europe, salt from southern waters, fish from the North Sea, spices from Asia, sugar from the Atlantic world, silver, cloth, porcelain, tea, books, maps, and knowledge. Amsterdam became the place where all these movements came together. Imagine walking into Amsterdam in the middle of the 17th century. You hear many languages in the streets: Dutch, German, Portuguese, French, English, Hebrew, and others. You see merchants arguing over prices, sailors returning from long voyages, printers selling books, bankers weighing coins, artists carrying canvases, scientists examining lenses and maps. The city smells of salt water, tar, spices, fish, smoke, and money. This was not just a city, it was a machine for moving goods, a machine for gathering information, a machine for turning risk into profit. And one of the greatest engines inside that machine was the VOC. In 1602, Dutch merchants and the government created the Dutch East India Company, known as the VOC. This was not just a normal company, it was a new kind of power. It could raise money from investors, it could send fleets across the world, it could build forts, it could make treaties, it could fight wars, it could govern territories. In other words, it was a company that behaved like a state. And this was one of the great turning points in economic history. Before this, long-distance trade was extremely dangerous. A ship could sink, a crew could die. One merchant alone could lose everything, but the VOC allowed many investors to share the risk. Many people could buy shares. The company could use that money to build fleets and create a more permanent global network. This helped Amsterdam become a laboratory for modern finance. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange became one of the most important financial places in the world. People bought shares, promises, risk, and the future. This was one reason the Dutch Golden Age feels so modern. Amsterdam was not just rich because it had ships. It was rich because it developed systems. Credit, insurance, banking, global trade networks. The city understood that money could move faster than armies. A rumor from Asia could change prices in Amsterdam. A war in Europe could change shipping routes. Amsterdam became a place where the world was measured and priced. But the Dutch rise was not only about money, it was also about knowledge. To trade across oceans, you needed maps. To navigate, you needed mathematics. To build ships, you needed engineering. To manage water, you needed science. The Dutch became masters of practical knowledge. Their cities became centers of printing and science. This was one of the secrets of the Dutch Golden Age. Trade created wealth. Wealth supported knowledge. Knowledge improved trade, and the cycle repeated. Yet there was something else that made this civilization remarkable. The same society that built ships and banks also produced some of the greatest painters in history: Rembrandt, Vermeer, Frans Hals, Jan Steen. These artists did not only paint kings and saints, they painted merchants, workers, and ordinary life. In many older civilizations, art often served rulers or churches. But in the Dutch Republic, art entered the homes of ordinary wealthy citizens. Domestic life became worthy of beauty. That is why Dutch Golden Age painting feels so different. It does not only show power from above, it shows life from within. A girl pouring milk, a man reading a letter. The Dutch looked at the world carefully. They looked at light, objects, faces, money, and maps. Through that act of looking, they turned everyday life into art. But every Golden Age has a shadow. The wealth of Amsterdam did not come from peaceful trade alone. The VOC occupied inside a brutal age of empire and exploitation. The Dutch challenged the Spanish, competed with the English, and used violence to protect profit. They took part in colonial systems that caused suffering far from Amsterdam. This is important to remember. The Dutch Golden Age was real. Its achievements were extraordinary. But its power was also tied to a harsh global system. Beauty and brutality at the same time. For much of the 17th century, the Dutch seemed almost unbeatable at sea. Their merchant fleet was enormous. Their navy could challenge greater kingdoms. But the Dutch Republic had a problem. It was powerful, but it was also surrounded. England wanted to break Dutch sea power. France wanted to dominate Europe. And inside the Dutch Republic itself, political divisions were growing. At the center stood Johan de Witt and the Republican elite, and the House of Orange. Johan de Witt was one of the most important figures of the Golden Age. He represented a vision of Dutch power based on cities, trade, and naval strength. But many still looked to the House of Orange in times of crisis. The strength of the Republic came from negotiation, but in panic, it could look like weakness. And that moment came in 1672. The Dutch would remember that year with one word: rampjaar, disaster year. In 1672, disaster came from several directions at once. France attacked by land, England at sea. The Dutch Republic faced the possibility of collapse. Dutch defenses cracked, cities panicked. Trade could make a country rich, but geography still mattered. When great powers attacked together, even a golden age could tremble. In desperation, the Dutch turned to one of their oldest weapons: water. They opened flood defenses and used the waterline to slow the French advance. Fields became lakes. The same landscape that had always threatened the Dutch now helped protect them. But politically, the damage was already done. Johan de Witt lost support. The House of Orange returned to power through William III. The old merchant republic had been shaken. The confidence of the Golden Age would never be the same. The fall of Johan de Witt was one of the darkest moments in Dutch history. In the fear and anger of 1672, he and his brother became targets of public rage. His career ended not with honor, but with violence. This was the tragic reversal of the Dutch Golden Age. A republic that mastered the sea could not master its own divisions. The Dutch Republic did not disappear in 1672. It survived. It fought back. William III would become a major figure. But something had changed. The peak had passed. England and France were rising. The center of world power was shifting. The Dutch Golden Age showed what a small country could do with ambition and money. So why does the Dutch Golden Age matter? Because it helped shape the modern world. It showed how trade could become global. It was a window into the future, a future of global markets, a future of corporations, a future of financial centers, a future where information could be as valuable as gold. The Dutch Golden Age was not the largest empire. Its power was different. It was the power of networks, ships, contracts, and trust. The power of a city that made the world smaller. And that is why a small republic by the North Sea became one of the most powerful civilizations of its time. It knew how to connect the world. This was the Dutch Golden Age. And when a small republic proved that sometimes the greatest power is not the power to conquer land, it is the power to move the world.